Hey everybody, and welcome back to section 4. This is going to be our last section, and we're going to go through the process of taking our low poly sword and getting it pretty much into Dota 2. We have a couple steps we have to go through, but this is going to be pretty much technical stuff, so this isn't going to be too hard, and once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite easy. And yeah, let's just kind of get started here, okay? So just to recap of where we are, we currently have our low poly object that is created and ready for use in Dota 2. We have our low poly object that is used for, ready for use in pretty much any other type of game that's going to use separated specular maps and normal maps and everything else. But this one is using the Dota 2 combined type shaders. So we're all ready to go here, okay? So what we're going to need to do now is actually get our rig in from the Dota 2 workshop. So what we're going to want to do first is load up our Omni Knight weapons model, okay, direct from the Dota 2 workshop. So I've actually already downloaded, and it will be included in the section 4 materials, so I'm not going to go to the website to find it and download it. But if you want to do it that way, you can too. That'll always guarantee you the most up-to-date version. But for all intents and purposes, the one I'm including is going to be fine, and you're welcome to just work from that. Okay, so let's go ahead and load that up, and I'll show you where it is located as well. So I'm just going to go File, Open Scene, and what I want to look for now is my root folder, and inside the root folder I created this folder called Template from Workshop. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on that, and I've already extracted the zip file. You will have it extracted as well as the original zip in the section 4 materials. So I'm just going to go into Models. I'm going to go Heroes, I'm going to go Omni Knight, and I'm going to go to the FBX folder, and I'm going to grab the weapon file itself. Okay, so let's just go ahead and open that. And I'm not going to save this because it's already saved. Whatever, I'll save it. And I'm going to go Import. Okay, so now what we have, if you zoom out, it's kind of big. Shows us that we've been working on the wrong scale the whole time, but that's okay, we'll fix that. So here we have our Omni Knight model, which is basically a skeletal rig, and the only thing connected is the hammer, the original weapon. Okay, so we're going to be replacing that. So what we're going to want to do now is save this in a location that's going to be more accessible to us. So let's go File, Save As, and let's put it in with our other scene files. So I'm just going to go Desktop, Omni Knight Sword, and right with my other scenes where I've kept all my sword stuff, I'm going to go ahead and say Original Rig, okay? And I'm going to save it. Original rig, actually I'm going to call it Original Rig for Sword. And I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to save it as a myLT file at this point. Alright, so that's that. Okay, now the next thing we're going to want to do is to simply organize this a little bit. Okay, so let's grab the hammer and let's create a new layer for it. So I'm going to click this one on the far right, which automatically assigns it, and I'm going to call this the hammer layer. And save it. Okay, the next thing I want to do is just turn off that hammer layer and then select everything. Okay, all the bones. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to create another new layer, and we're going to call this one rig. And that's that. Save that. Okay, and now what we're going to do is just going to save the whole scene again. Okay, so now that we've made those changes, we don't want to lose them. Okay, the next step is going to be to import our actual original sword files. Okay, so we're going to go File, and we're going to go Import. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and grab the pieces we need for this job. Okay, so it's going to be there. And there we go. Okay, now one thing you'll notice is that all of the old layers that we had from the last file will actually be carried over into this file. So our organization that we did in that file are fully relative here. Okay, so we still have our picture plane, which we're going to actually be getting rid of soon. And we're going to be getting rid of our high poly sword and our original low poly sword because we're not going to need them anymore. So what we're going to do is we're actually just going to go ahead and turn off everything. And we're going to start with the picture plane. Okay, so let's turn that on and select everything in the scene, including these lights if you got them to come through. And we're going to go ahead and hit delete. Okay, and delete. Okay, great. So that's done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer. Delete layer. And now I'm going to move up to I don't think there's anything in main anymore. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to delete that layer. Delete layer. And high poly sword, there it is, but I don't need it. So I'm going to right click and say delete layer. And I'm going to go into my low poly sword, the original normal one, with the standard texture settings on it. Okay, that's this guy here. And I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go delete layer. Actually, I'm sorry, I got to grab everything first. Delete. Grab this one, select everything, and delete this layer now. Okay, so delete layer. Okay, so now what we're going to have is just our original sword, our rig, and the hammer. Okay, so that's where you should be at now. Okay, so, and there should be nothing else. When you turn all these off, just make sure that there's nothing in your scene. If there is, just select it all and delete it. Okay, just make sure that these all do contain their appropriate pieces. Okay, just because sometimes things get left out of folders and they'll just be hanging out, and if you turn them all off, you'll see whatever's hanging out. I don't have anything hanging out, so I'm good. Okay, so all right, I'm going to turn on my rig, I'm going to turn on my hammer, and I'm going to turn on my sword. Okay, so the next step is to just scale this thing up to the appropriate size. Okay, so I'm just going to select it, and I'm going to go ahead and scale. Okay, till it feels about close to what I'm looking for. So I think that's probably about good to start figuring it out. Let's move it on up and move it on over and put it kind of in position where we want it. So that's going to feel about good. I think I like the top of the sword, whereas right hand will be. So that's about good, and that should just about do it for here. I just want to make sure that it's nicely arranged and that it's sitting exactly where I want it. So I'm just going to take a look really quick and make sure that it's falling exactly where the hammer is. I don't know why my manipulators aren't showing there. And that looks pretty good. So basically what I'm trying to do is this little hand bone in here, okay, which we're going to be making use of, so I'm just going to turn all this stuff off, okay. This bone right here is actually the controller for the sword, okay. It doesn't look like much, but that's what's doing all the work of all the movement of your sword. So it's important that you get it placed where you want it, okay. So there it is, and as you can see, it's falling pretty nicely in the center of where I want that hand to be, okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my sword, and because I may have to adjust this slightly, I don't want to have to adjust it from a pivot point that's nowhere near where the hand would be. Like if I have to angle it a little bit, I don't want to lose my center point. Like right now, if I were to angle this sword, right, it's going to leave being centered on the bone. Okay, so I don't want that. What I really want is I want it to be pretty much exactly where the bone is. So in order to do that, all I have to do is grab my move tool, hold down D, and slide it down to where the hand would be. Okay, so that actually moves its pivot rotation. So now if I go ahead and rotate, you'll see that I'm rotating at the hand. Okay, so that's a really nice useful thing for repositioning later. And it may or may not have an effect on your model, so I would do it just in case, but yeah, for the most important reason for it is so that we can adjust the positioning once we get it into Dota and see how it lands. Because we're going to want to do some tweaking after the fact that will just be a lot easier if we have a pivot point where we need it. Okay, so that's pretty much done. Now the next step is going to be to ensure that our transformations and everything is resolved. So let's go ahead and delete all of our history. So we're going to go edit, delete by type, and we're going to go history. And now what we're going to want to do is go ahead and reset the transformations. Well, not reset, but freeze. Okay, so we're going to go modify, and we're going to go freeze transformations. And if you notice now, everything is zeroed out. Okay, so our transformations are all set to 0. Okay, which is really important. Otherwise, you might get scaling issues when you bring it in. The sword will be like 10 times bigger or 10 times smaller than you expected, and it'll just cause anomalies. So make sure you do ahead. That's the most important one. So I'm just going to do it one more time. I'm just going to show you once more. We're going to go modify, freeze transformations. It's really important you do this, okay? So that's done now. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got our sword and we've got our model, or the skeleton rather. And what we want to do is kind of make sure that the bone is telling the sword what to do, okay? So the first thing we're going to want to do is turn off your low poly sword for a second, okay? And then zoom on in and grab this one little bone right at the end of this sticking out thing, right? And that is going to be called hammer 0_0 for Omni Knight. This is going to be your primary bind bone, okay? And every model has one depending on what you are going to be attaching. So if you were attaching a head, you know, you might need to grab this bone, or not a head, but a helmet or something, you know. So each of these bones is going to kind of control a specific item. And this one is the one we need for our sword, okay? So what we want to do now is turn on our sword while the bone is still selected, okay? So we're going to turn on our sword, and we're going to go ahead and select our sword, okay? Now this part is a little tricky, okay? So basically, if you wanted to, you could go animation and you can go skin and bind skin and go into the bind skin tools. But I find more often than not, in 2014 they cause errors. So I actually use a mel script. So I'm going to give you that mel script right now. And I already have it copied into my clipboard, and I'm going to paste it right here. So it's going to go skin cluster dash bind method 1 dash max influences 4 dash to selected bone semicolon. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and have this in a little highlight. It's probably showing up right now. But you can go ahead and copy that mel script and just paste it right into this mel line right here. Okay, so once you do that, you're just going to go ahead and hit return. Okay, and that will actually bind all of the bones to the exact place that they need to be. Now, you'll notice once you've done that, if it's successful, wherever you move the bone now, you will move the sword. Okay, as you can see. So we don't want to move it out of position though, so make sure you undo that if you test it. But yeah, that's basically it. So the rig is now fully rigged, okay? And all we have to do now is go ahead and export this as an FBX file. Okay, so now in order to export this, we don't really have to do too much. All we're going to have to do is select our bone of the rig, select our sword with shift, and we're going to go file, export selection, and we're going to choose FBX format, and we're going to go export selection. It's going to then give us a dialog box, and where I'm going to actually store it is inside of the textures final folder, okay? And I'm going to call it sword underscore export, all lowercase, sword underscore export.fbx. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and hit export selection. It's going to give you a warning, but that's okay. Hit close, and that's that. So now, as we've just put something into that folder that is now making that folder not logically named, let's go ahead and fix that really quick. So I'm just going to go into my root folder here, and where I now have textures final, I'm now going to call it final sword for Dota, okay? And inside this folder, we're going to find everything we need for exporting to Dota. We're going to have the export FBX, which is the actual model with the rig. We're going to have the sword color map. We're going to have the sword normal map. We're going to have sword mask 1, which will contain the 4 textures within it, and we will under each channel, remember we did that on section 3, and sword mask 2, which was the same thing. It's a RGB alpha file which contains our 4 other textures. So that's what we really need, and that's all we really need. Okay, so once you have that, you can now get excited because we're going to be launching up Dota next, and we will be importing all this stuff into Dota 2. Alright, so let's close up this window. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch up Dota now. Okay, so once you're in here, you're just going to go ahead and go Store, and you're going to go Workshop, and you're going to go Publish New Submission. Okay, inside of here, you're going to go ahead and click on Wearable Item, and we're going to go ahead and fill out some details. So I'm going to call this one Omni Sword. You can name yours whatever you'd like. The next thing you're going to want to do is select your hero. In our case, it's going to be Omni Knight. And I just got to find it. There you are. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the weapon slot. Okay, so this is loadout slot is now going to be set to weapon. And now the last thing we have to do is actually tell it where to look for the files. Okay, so we're just going to go wearable item and the in-game geometry. We're just going to go ahead and grab our sword export. I navigated here already, but this is the final sword folder that we created. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click on my sword export, and I'm going to grab my texture files, and again it's already looking at that folder, but you'll just have to navigate to it, no biggie. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit sword color, and for this one it'll actually read everything just so long as you named everything right. So that's why I was saying, like, it's really important that these are named right. Again, it's going to be underscore color.tga. It doesn't matter what the prefix is, but the tail has to be underscore color.tga, underscore mask1.tga, underscore mask2.tga, and underscore normal.tga. Okay, so just make sure that that's all set properly, and we're going to go ahead and hit open, and then we can close this down. Okay, now the only thing left to do is actually launch the file. So go ahead and hit import. Now if you want to, you can put in marketing materials and do all sorts of other stuff in here, but I'm not going to cover all that. There's a little help file over here. You'll have to figure that part out. But we're just going to go ahead and hit import now, and there we go. So hit OK, and here's our sword in game, ready to rock. Okay, so there you have it, and you can see yourself with the sword in place, and you can rotate around with the mouse, go like that. You have a couple different viewing options. You can go to daylight view, where you can see it over here. You can go to nighttime view. You can go to portrait view if you're doing a helmet or something. That's useful. We're not going to need that. But let's go back to the daylighting preview or the nighttime preview, doesn't matter which. And from here what you can do is you can go ahead and actually tell it to do some animation stuff. It's kind of cool. So you can cast repel, and you can flail and see what that looks like. And okay, my sword's crushing through the ground. Maybe I need to resize it or something. Whatever. You can cast purification. You can get the capture. You just kind of can try different things to see if your animation is going to be an issue. So that's pretty much it. And oh yeah, there's one last really cool thing that I always love, which is the actual in-game preview. So let's go ahead and go into there, and I'm going to hit OK. And this is actually going to launch a server on your own computer that your model is going to be then hosted through. So you're actually almost like playing a game, but you're not really playing a game because there's no enemies or anything like that. It's just you on the map, and you get to walk around as if you were in the game. So on all pick, rather than searching through here, which you're welcome to do with your scroll wheel, I just type up here, and I'm just going to go ahead and go Omni, and that'll grab them. And we're going to go ahead and pick Omni Knight. Now here you'll notice that the model itself doesn't actually change. Okay, that doesn't matter though. Just go ahead and hit play, and there you are. And now your sword is in the game, and you can go ahead and walk around. And oh my god, all the talking. So you can zoom in. You can use the portrait mode, and you can go ahead and take a good look at your sword. See if it's like this is causing a collision, maybe I want to fix that, or you get a couple different options, but you can see how your rim lighting's doing. See here, we have that rim lighting coming into effect. And just basically how it all looks. And that's pretty much it. You can even go ahead and grab a spell and cast Purify on yourself and see how that looks. Yes. So yeah, guys, there you have it. We pretty much can safely assume that you now know how to create an item for Dota 2 and bring it into the game and impress your friends and be awesome and all that good stuff. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I really hope that you guys make a bunch of cool stuff that I get to purchase on the Dota 2 store, because I certainly like to do that. And it would make me really happy to know that I'm helping somebody here find a little bit of income and have some fun doing what they love to do. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And you now are equipped to do it. All right. So please let me know if you liked this video, and definitely comment. And I know this section ended up being very short, which might actually be a blessing. Yeah, we did it, and we made it all the way through, and you guys made it all the way through, and we did it. So awesome. Congratulations. See you soon. Till next time.
Healing shock.